Hello, and welcome back to He Met Me in the Middle. I'm Breanne Sims, RN and co-founder of Kingdom Fasting.
And I'm Sheri Johnson, functional nutrition and lifestyle practitioner with Empowered Health Coaching. So we have another special guest. Jacqueline is another local to me in the Central Florida Christian Chamber, and I would love to introduce you to her. So Jacquelyn Lynn is the creator and voice behind Christian Almanac, a growing collection of books and a weekly podcast devoted to one steady conviction: faith belongs in real life. After leaving a decade-long career in the freight transportation industry to pursue her lifelong calling to write, she has dedicated her work to helping believers integrate faith into leadership, business, relationships, and everyday decisions. Her flagship book, Christian Business Almanac, the ultimate daily guide for kingdom-driven entrepreneurs and leaders, equips professionals to pursue excellence without compromising their devotion to Christ. Through the Christian Almanac podcast, Jacqueline brings practical insight, biblical wisdom, and clear, accessible teaching to listeners navigating the realities of modern life. The author of or collaborator on more than 45 books, she focuses primarily on writing, speaking, and expanding the Christian Almanac platform. Jacqueline partners with her husband, Jerry Clement, to steward and strengthen its creative presence. So, 45 books. I didn't know that. That is amazing.
When people are doing other work and writing a book along with then writing a book sounds like a whole lot more when it's all you're doing. And that was essentially my job, was to write things. So you can write a lot of books when you're not doing anything else. Yeah.
Yes. And so I would love to hear what brought you into writing the Christian Business Almanac, because it's a phenomenal book.
Thank you. I started my writing career freelancing for magazines, primarily business magazines. And that was, a long time ago. And I loved it because I got to explore so many things that I was interested in and learn about them, write about them, and then move on to the next topic. And after years and years of doing that, somewhere I got the idea of doing what I was thinking of at the time of as kind of a managers or business owners or entrepreneurs kind of almanac. And I used to write a lot for Entrepreneur Magazine and Entrepreneurs Book Publishing Division. In fact, I wrote, I think, 11 titles in their How to Start a Business Startup Guide series. And so I pitched this idea to the publisher there and said, what I'm envisioning is a daily guide for business people with some tips and reminders of the dates, like, okay, if it's April 1st, remember the 15th is tax deadline, get ready, that kind of thing. And he shot me down right away, immediately. He said, those books never sell. We're not going to do them. I got an idea for something else, though, if you want to do it. So I did that. And I couldn't quite let go of that book, but I was busy doing other things. I had a lot of other opportunities. I am also a ghostwriter, so I was ghostwriting books and I was busy, but this just kept nagging at me. And finally, God takes his time. Well, he doesn't, he works on his time. And finally, I heard him say, you need to come back to this. You need to do this, but you need to make it my book. And I kind of sat back and said, okay, got to help me on this, God. What is this meaning? And he fed it to me a piece at a time. And I'm so glad it came that way, because if he had said, oh yeah, this is everything you're going to put in there, when I was getting started with it, I probably would have had a meltdown and said, oh, no way, I can't do that. That's just too much. Because it was a lot of research and a lot of work and a lot of production to get it right, to put a scripture every day. There's a kind of inspirational thought on every day. There's a prayer prompt, a little bit of trivia, a lot of stories about Christian business people, and some of them are very brief. And they're not, and I don't even always identify them as Christians, but just this is what they did. So that's how that came about. And like I said, it took a couple of years once I really got started on it to produce it. But there it is, and here it is. And we're my husband and I worked on it together. We're both really, really proud of it.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Amazing.
It really is. Yeah. So I know you took a pivot recently.
I did. And it was a pretty big one. I have spent most of my professional life writing, again, primarily in the business arena, and ghostwriting. And then as technology evolved, doing what we call self-publishing consulting, meaning that the people that I was ghostwriting books for, I was able to give them a turnkey product rather than just handing them a manuscript and say, here's your book, go do whatever it is you want to do with it. I was able to help them set up their publishing companies and actually produce and publish the book for them. And and I loved doing that. And I loved helping people get their book out there. But I had spent a couple of years caring for my elderly father, and kind of in that season, it was time consuming because I was the only person who was, boy, this sounds self-serving, but anyway, I was the only person who was stepping up to the plate and taking care of him. And so a lot of hours of back and forth to the doctor and making sure that he had what he needed. And as he continued to decline, he was 97 when he died.
Mm.
So those last few years, convincing him to stop driving, that kind of thing. I had to back away from a lot of my business stuff because I just couldn't do it all. And when he passed, then it was this time of introspection. Okay, I don't have to get up in the morning and go over to dad's and make sure that he's okay and check with this doctor and schedule that appointment. I have to do all that. What am I going to do? And what an opportunity. And again, when we let ourselves be guided by God, who kind of stepped up and said, a couple of years ago, I told you to create this book. You did it. You were obedient. You did it. Well, now it's time to get it out there to more people. And it's time for you to focus less on doing work for other business people and more on doing the work that I have called you to do and sharing my message. And he pointed out, hey, you know, I've been taking care of you all these years. You've never not been able to pay your bills. You've never not put food on the table. So trust me on this. It's going to work. So again, because I partner with my husband, and I those of us who do partner with our spouses, we know how blessed it is to be able to work together. And there's some challenges there too, like when you stop working. But we talked, what are how what are we going to do? What's in my heart to write next? And I want to do the Christian Family Almanac. Now, I had an ambitious goal of putting that out this summer. I don't think that's going to happen, but there are a lot of other things that we have done. One thing is the Christian Almanac podcast. And this was fun because, again, don't you love the way we plan? And God says, no, no, that's not exactly what I had in mind. Because I was like, okay, we're going to, set up the christianalmanac.com website, and, we're going to look for ways to promote that. And we're going to do Christian Business Almanac focus books, which take a topic that's in the almanac and expand on it in a short kind of a mini book. The idea is the book is something you can read in an hour or less and come away with things you can do, and they're affordably priced. And then I want to do the Christian Family Almanac, and then after that several years ago I wrote one novel with the idea that it would be a series, and I never got back to it. So as we were moving in that direction, people kept saying to us, multiple people, and we know God doesn't always speak directly to us because we're not always listening as carefully as we should. And people were saying, you really need to start a podcast. And I had a YouTube channel, and I had 2 to 4 minute videos on the YouTube channel where I was just spouting off about issues that I wanted to talk about. And, again, people were saying, you should do a podcast. And my response was, I don't want to do a podcast. It's too much work. I want to do my books. And, finally that tap on the, hey, I'm trying to talk to you podcast. And my podcast is a little different than I love these podcasts like you all do, but the scheduling the guests, the making sure everybody shows up on time, getting the information you need ahead of time. That was like, I don't want to do that. And again, it God explained it. You don't have to do that kind of podcast. And I realized that for so many years in my writing career, what I did was research, interview, compile, write articles. And so essentially, our podcast is video and audio articles on topics that, we feel are important, and with the whole overriding theme of living our faith in real life, because it's so easy to be a Christian when you're at church. It's so easy to be a Christian when you're in a small group of like-minded people, although sometimes even then it can get tempting to not be so Christian. But out in the real world, when you're working, when you're dealing in public with other people, when you're dealing with the homeowners association, and just all the things that we have to deal with, sometimes it gets to not be so easy to live out your faith.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so that's the podcast.
Yeah. It's good. Yeah. I was listening this morning before we got on, and I was enjoying it. So I highly encourage people to go out and look for Jacqueline's podcast and subscribe and listen, because she has some real encouragement
Thank
that
you.
she shares. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing.
So I don't directly work with my husband, but he is one of my best helpers and comes alongside me for you get to see him, Jacqueline, at the different luncheons. But Bree, you work with your husband. What are some of the challenges that you all face when you're working with your husband? Because I did in the corporate world, but not now.
I think probably the two most challenging areas are, and I mentioned this earlier, when do you stop working? And we have to be very intentional. We have offices, we work from home, we have offices, and and we do talk about work outside the office, but we have this intentional time at the end of the day of saying, okay, we're done. We're not working anymore today. Another thing that we really had to work on was when we have to tell each other that the work we've produced is not what we want, need, or good enough. And
Tough conversation.
it is a tough conversation, it's a tough conversation with somebody you're not married to say, I told you to do that, you missed it, and I need you to go back and do it again, or, the font's not right, the color, because we're in the publishing area. So, and my husband is a photographer and videographer, and he'll do a video and I'll be like, yeah, that's good, but. And so yeah, that's a challenging thing to do, because it's like, i I don't want to hurt his feelings, but this isn't good enough, it's got to be changed. And he does the same with me. I'll hand him a script or a piece of manuscript and ask him to read it and check it, and it's great when all he does is catch a few typos and that kind of thing. But then sometimes it's, hey, this just didn't make any sense to me, you need to write it over. So yeah, I think those are two of the big challenges that couples who work together. Breanne, what about you?
I think the first one for sure, it's hard not to just continue to bring work into everything when you're working on it together. But so we do have to have sort of boundaries around that and schedule time for work and not for work. The other thing that I find is that we both have very strong opinions about things. I think it should be one way. He thinks it should be another way. And so we have to continue to figure out ways to meet in the middle of, where we're thinking. And so, yeah, we do have to bring God into all of the conversations, because my opinion and his opinion may not be God's opinion. So that is the big lesson that we've had to learn working together. I would say probably the biggest.
I know, even when we worked in the corporate world together, and we were not on the same team, but we were on different teams in a software company, each software developers, we had the same thing. We come home and it's like, no, no more, turn it off. I don't want to hear any more about work.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a hard one
Yeah,
for
exactly.
sure. Yeah.
Well, and because you have to make sure that you're nurturing what brought you together in marriage in the first place, because what eventually brought us together to working together, that was we'd been married several years before that happened. And it, you just, you have to make sure to protect that. Otherwise, because the business isn't going to last forever.
Right.
There's going to come a time when you need to be outside the business, and yeah.
Have something else to talk about, maybe.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Other interests.
Can't only talk
Yeah.
about business. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And even when you love the work you're doing so much, and we we spent a couple of hours yesterday morning sitting down and deciding on topics for future podcasts. And we're going through the Bible and looking at scripture and saying, well, how can we use this, and what is the real message here behind this that we can put out there. And it's like, you think, this is so much fun, it's so rich and rewarding, that I we'd be doing this kind of thing even if it wasn't part of our business, and that's awesome. But still, it's work. And we need to remember that this, while it's certainly part of God's purpose, it wasn't that original thing where God said to us, you two belong together.
I would say when I was listening to your podcast this morning, even if you don't own a business, I think the words that Jacqueline has are very encouraging to everybody. And she brings in a lot of scripture to think about through that and through the life experiences that you're going through. It's real life. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, again, I keep going back to it's so easy to be a Christian when you're in a group of, again, like-minded people, other Christians. And although the I think it's next week's podcast is going to talk about when Christians don't act Christian. And the message there is that's why we need to not follow people. We need to follow
Mm,
Jesus.
right.
The people who say, if this is what Christianity is all about, and they point to a fallen person,
Yeah.
then I don't want any part of that. Well, I don't
Right.
really want any part of that either, but guess what? That's the world we live in, but it's not what Christianity is about.
No, but the people are quick that are not Christians to point that out, right?
Hmm.
That, oh, well, they're not acting very Christian-like.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That'll be a good one to listen to
It's
for
like
sure.
that, and you Christian, and you did this. Well, yeah,
Not
I
proud of
did,
it,
and I
but
do, and you know,
Yes, we're all
I'm human.
exactly, we're all a
yeah.
work in progress.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. When you were helping other people, I remember at one of the fellowship Fridays we went to, and I think this was still at the point where I know you hadn't done your podcast yet. We hadn't heard about it yet. But you were talking about how people can create audiobooks. And I found that as a software developer in my prior life, I found that fascinating. You want to
And
explain how that
sure.
works?
Well, right now there's a whole bunch of ways you can do it. You can do it with AI, and or you can just record your own book, or you can hire a narrator. Hiring a narrator is very expensive because essentially you're hiring an actor to read your book. But if you write fiction, that is probably the best option because you're going to get somebody who can really do a good job. Using AI, it's economical and the quality is getting better and better. It's still not perfect. And some of the audiobook distribution platforms, and this can get really into the book publishing weeds, but some of the audiobook distribution platforms will not take an AI generated audiobook.
Oh, interesting.
I think, Amazon, I think most of us have a love hate relationship with Amazon. I joke that I really need to put the Amazon drivers that serve our neighborhood in my will because they're here so much. They're like part of the family. But Amazon is an awesome publishing platform. Regardless of how you feel about Jeff Bezos, he did an amazing thing with the creation of Amazon in terms of making it possible for people who want to publish books to be able to get their books out there. And as of now, this could be different next week, but as of now, they will not take an AI generated voice except if you created that AI generated audiobook on their platform using their tools.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, so I think it's one of those Amazon working to control the world kind of rules because then the other part of audiobooks is recording it yourself, but if you don't have the technical skills and the equipment to do the recording, do the editing. The first audiobook that we did, I narrated. We created our studio in the master bedroom closet because that's where we have all the clothes. So it's kind of a lot of natural sound buffering. And my husband, Jerry, told me later that when I am reading, I have a little tick that when I get to the end of a sentence, I do a little click. And he said, Nobody notices that in conversation. In an audiobook, they're going to hear it. And after you've done it 3 or 4 times, that's all they're going to hear is that
Oh, wow.
annoying little tick. And this was years ago. Today, the technology is such that he could have done a blanket instruction to say, go take out that tick. But then he had to, as he was going through and listening to the files, he was manually taking out every time I did that little tick. Okay, what can I say? The man loves me. But
Yeah.
That's
But I
awesome.
think what I found fascinating too, and it makes sense even more because it's coming out more and more, and it's like in this way it is a positive in that it only needs a sample of your voice, and you can use the AI to create the book in your voice, right? I think that's what
and
you were saying, yeah.
yeah, and that's what Amazon won't accept. And there is a little bit more. I mean, the sample has to be substantial enough for AI to really, really learn how you speak.
Okay.
It needs to be not just 2 or 3 minutes. It needs to be a good hour or more of
Oh,
you
wow.
reading and talking and I am just absolutely amazed at the technology, the and how fast it has come. And I mean, the first book that I wrote, I had to print out the manuscript, put it in a box with a 5 1/4 inch floppy disk, and mail it to New York to Simon and Schuster. And and then just getting to the point where, okay, I can design these books better than their designer on my computer.
Mhm.
And now, again, with what AI can do, both on the writing side and the audio side and images, it's amazing. It is. And I think it's something that we can't ignore. I get in writers groups and writers are like, "Oh, I'm not going to do anything with AI," or, "Oh, I wouldn't dream of doing an audiobook using an AI generated voice." Okay, you don't have to, but you're going to get left behind if you don't understand this technology and figure out when you should use it and when you shouldn't. One of the
Yeah.
things, this is the focus book for the Christian Business Almanac focus book. And so I got the whole book written, and then we did the audio in I recorded it. But one of the things that lots of people recommend for writers before you do that final edit, before you put your book into production, read it out loud, because that's where you catch your little awkwardness and your bumps and your typos. So we used recording the audiobook basically as our final proofread. and
Nice.
and then we had it and we were able to upload everything all together. So that is just, it wasn't AI. I could have popped it into AI, but who knows what mistakes might have slipped past us.
Sure. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Again, oh gosh, this is going back a couple of years. A fellow that was doing some work in our house who was a relatively new Christian and very, very enthusiastic. I mean, I loved his passion. But he asked me one day, he said, what do you think about AI? And I could sense that he was getting ready to go into this is the devil's tool mode. And I said, it's technology and we're in charge. And as long as you use the tools and you use them for good, then I think it's great. I mean, you think about, we could not have done this podcast that we're doing. I mean, we're in 3 different places, 2 different time zones. It's amazing what we're able to do with technology. And,
Yeah.
and we're sharing the gospel while we're doing it. How awesome is that?
Right.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, it is. Coaching slash functional nutrition. They had a workshop with the AI, and that was like quite a while ago when it was really starting to be used. And what I loved that the guy said was, he goes, it can be used for good and it could be used for evil. But if we start
Mhm.
working with it and start training it for good, then it's going to have that as a basis. And
Yes.
so, if
Mhm.
everybody starts using it for good, then that may
Mhm.
be what it, you know, goes and will, replicate.
Yeah.
So,
And
Exactly.
I think that's so true and so important. And and it is easy, well, particularly for, baby boomers and older, but it's easy to get a little intimidated by the technology if you haven't worked with it. But it's a tool and it's getting easier and easier to use. I mean, and I tell people this, my 97-year-old father was sending emails and watching YouTube videos right up until just a few months before he passed. And, when he would tell me, or he'd send me a link to a YouTube video, and I mean, they would be long, and I'd be like, Dad, I don't have time to watch this, but, thank you.
that's amazing though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Because so many, I remember my dad, about all he would do is play solitaire. So
Nice.
that was about his extent.
Send me an email, let me know that you're up. And because if I don't get that email by 9 o'clock, I know I have to check on you. As long as I've got that email, then you can go do whatever you want.
Right.
And, and yeah, it worked.
Ah, that's excellent. Kind of forced him to learn and
Mm-hmm.
to utilize it. And that's great. That's why he was sharp,
That's really good.
right?
What again, right up until,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's amazing. Oh,
So I'm curious, what are some of the big things that you, I don't know, speak to entrepreneurs about how to make sure that they're integrating their faith and God even in their business, in their life?
Points that I try to make is first of all, stop compartmentalizing. We are not just Christians at church and at home, just as those of us who are parents or grandparents, we're not, we talk to other people about our family. Well,
Mhm.
why not let our faith be that casual conversation thing? Don't hide it, don't compartmentalize it. And when things start happening that they're just kind of on the edge, and there's where things really get tough, because that it just doesn't feel quite right, but it's not bad enough to stand up. That's a And then the next one is just a little worse. So we have to honor God in everything we do. And that means saying no, even to the little things where you're like, well, is it really a big deal if I let that slide? And yes, it is. It may seem like a little thing, but yes, it is. It's a big deal. And I think that's an important message for entrepreneurs. The other thing is is, if you're in charge of the business and you can do this, then you need to incorporate things like prayer into activities, into your day. There is no law against it. And if you don't happen
Yeah.
to be in charge, if you happen to be somebody who works for a corporation, and you can still take the time when you need to go to God. I mean, you can do it fast. I mean, God operates at warp speed. We know that. So it can be just a quick, God, help me out here because I can't do this by myself, and then jump in. So that's some of the things that I encourage entrepreneurs to consider, is that this compartmentalizing thing we shouldn't be doing. We are Christians, and we are Christians 24/7. So we should, you know, we should act like it.
Carry him with us everywhere.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And share that message everywhere. And remember that even when we're not specifically talking about God or Jesus or the Bible, even when we're not doing that, we are modeling Jesus. I mean, we're Christ followers, and we're supposed to be doing what he taught us to do. And people are watching and
Yeah.
judging. And
Yeah.
yeah, we're not just being good because somebody might see us. We're being good because we should be.
Yeah. I think there's been so much shame that's been put on it of us sharing our faith in all the spaces,
Mhm.
squashed maybe, that
Mhm.
it's, people kind of are like, Christians are kind of, hesitant to
Yeah.
share because they don't know where they're going to get
Yeah.
smacked, I guess.
Smack. Yeah. I with the Live Your Faith at Work mini book, focus book,
Mhm.
I put a notice about that out in one of the Facebook groups that I'm on, and it's a publishing group. And the first comment was, "Not for me. If somebody starts preaching to me at work, I'm gone." I'm like, okay, well, if you read the book, you'd see that very early on it stresses do not preach. But yeah, that's the way that the world is treating Christians. And this isn't new, but I think social media and communication really shines a spotlight on it. And I think in some ways it is it is getting worse, because civility is just not what it used to be. I mean, it used to be that someone would say something you disagreed with, and depending on the circumstances, you might engage in a real conversation. Or if you just said, well, I'm going to let this go. And nowadays it's like, no, I'm going to jump into this, and I'm going to tell you you're wrong, and I'm going to tell you, you know all of these bad things that you're doing. And I mean, it is tough. I think, and this is kind of interesting, I think that it's a whole lot easier to live out our faith without explaining to anybody why we're doing it, because you don't have to be a Christian to be ethical. There's lots of ethical people out there who are not Christians. So, in fact, I have a client who's Jewish, and he his ethics are so strong, and his do the right thing at work, even if we lose money on it, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
And and I think that that's certainly a Christian attitude, but he's not a Christian, and he will make reference to that. Not a lot, but like the subject of Easter may come up, and he'll say, "Well, I don't celebrate Easter, but," and and he moves on. So, yeah, letting people know why we are the way we are, it's important, and it's risky. it is risky because we could get attacked for it.
Mhm.
And, and that does seem to be to, you know, that group of non-Christians, not all of them, but that group of them that, they take delight when we stumble. And it's sad. And it does make you shy away from wanting to speak up. And, because Sheri, you and I are active in the Christian Chamber of Commerce, and most of our member businesses are small and mid-sized companies. And the reason is that the big corporations, and they belong to all of the other local and national chambers, even though they may not be going to meetings or whatever, they join, they pay their dues, and they have it, member of the Orlando Chamber of Commerce and whatever city that you're in, Chamber of Commerce. And they have told our leadership that they're concerned that if they join the Christian Chamber of Commerce,
Mm.
even if the people who would be making that decision are Christians and feel an affinity to the chamber's mission, they're afraid it's going to offend their customers, so they won't do it.
Yeah.
And that breaks my heart.
Yeah.
But it's the world we live in. So my message is be bold, be courageous, step out and let people know that you're doing this because, oh my gosh, this awesome, amazing God sent his son, and his son gave up his life for us. And how can we not give our lives back to him?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Following in what he's called us to do,
Yeah.
honestly, which I know we all feel very led in what we're doing by
Yeah.
God. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's something, if you are not feeling like God is leading you in whatever you're doing, maybe you need to be thinking about what you're doing and, step out in faith. Like I said, God has never let me down. I didn't always get what I thought I was going to get, or what, I mean, it's not always my plan. I know he spends an awful lot of time laughing at me and face planting at me. And I think that's true for all of us. And we just, when we walk with God, yes, he is that king, and he deserves that respect, but he is also that father who loves us.
Yeah.
Wants to walk every step with us, every one of us. Yeah.
And he'll stop
Yeah.
us from, I think he might let us stumble, but he doesn't let us fall all the way down.
And he redirects, right, Jacqueline?
Yes. He does I've been talking to you and you're just not getting it. And no, it could be a gentle nudge. And then the next thing you know, he's picked up a 2x4 and you're like, that's what you meant.
Thank you.
So, and when
Oh,
you are on that path, you know it. And the peace and the joy is so awesome, even when there's so much else that's just challenging. You
Mhm.
deal with it and the peace and the joy never goes away.
Thank you so much for sharing with us today and joining
yeah.
us, and just the encouragement and the fun conversation.
Thank
If
you.
people are wanting to find you and get their daily dose of encouragement, where do they find you?
ChristianAlmanac.com is the main website. If you go to christianalmanac.com/podcast, that's the podcast directory, and that'll take you to the podcast episodes. And on every page on the website is a form to sign up so that you can get emails when a new podcast drops, and other emails that will encourage and motivate and inspire you.
Yeah. Nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And we will have all the links for Jacqueline and all the places that she is. I know she's very active on LinkedIn as well. I'm on LinkedIn, but I know that he met me in the middle is not on LinkedIn, but we'll be following you in all the places. And just like us with Jacqueline, to get her podcast out there, like it, share it, and send it to somebody that needs that, to hear what she is saying, because there's so much goodness in what she's saying.
And
So
that personal thing, I mean, yes, by all means, share it on social media, but that one-to-one thing with a message that says, I listened to this and I think you could benefit from it, or, be kind of
yeah,
tactful with how you phrase that. But,
exactly.
I thought of you and wanted to share it. That is so powerful, because it's, for me, and I think for you both too, it's not about the numbers. It's not about reaching millions of people. It's about touching one life.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and saying all of that said, it also reminded me that if you're having a hard time sharing your faith, this is an easy way to share your faith.
Yes.
So,
So true.
Yeah. Yeah. Let
so
somebody else do it for you. And, that's the community part of our faith.
exactly, exactly. We're all lifting each other up. That's our
Yes.
goal. Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Jacqueline.
Oh, it has
Yeah.
been such a
Thank you.
pleasure to be here.
Yeah, great fun conversation.
Yes. Thank you, everyone,
Yeah,
for listening. We'll see you in a few weeks.
yeah. Thank you.